because especially as they get older, the kids are going to have different schedules. They're going to be going here, going there. I mean, somebody listening is like, yeah, my 10-year-old and my 13-year-old and my 14-year-old, they're all going in these different directions, and that is the way it goes, right? They all have different social calendars and ball schedules, whatever. So you have to be intentional. There's that word again. We've said it all season, but it's like you have to be intentional about the way that you put your kids in the room, where honestly, they're forced to be friends in a way.
Yes.
Because otherwise, are they going to pick each other? Maybe or maybe not.
Because I was going to say, we're not asking them to be best friends.
Right. And also, they've got different personalities. Jamie, I've got this funny story that is seared in my memory. The boys were, I don't know, they were probably older elementary school. And Scotty had taken them with him to go look at the ball fields because he was coaching my youngest in T-ball at the time. So he was the coach. They'd gone to go check out the fields. I think they were checking them to see if they were wet or dry or whatever. So they had gone to go do that, and all of a sudden they come back home, and they'd been gone about an hour. I heard a knock on the door that leads to the garage. So that door, I guess I'd locked it. They couldn't get in. Clearly their dad was in the car or something, and they didn't have a key to get in. So knock on the door. So I go and I unlock the door and I open it. And there stands my boys. Now my boys are about 2.5 years apart, almost 3 years apart. There stand my boys. Jamie, they looked like they'd been in a bar fight. Like their face was sort of puffy, like their cuts. Like I'm like, oh my word. And I'm telling you, panic sets in.
Was your first thought, where's your dad?
Well, yeah, I did think, where's your dad? But this is a little on brand for him. Like, okay, he might be gone. He's talking to a neighbor. Like he's very gregarious, so he loves it. Who knows? And they looked at me, and they both were like, their face was just, they were sullen face and all this, and they looked at me and they looked very guilty. And I said, what in this world happened? Jamie, neither one of them could tell me at all why they started fighting. But what had happened was their dad had gotten out of the car, gone to check the field, and something had triggered a fight. They had started going at it. They were beating their brains out in the car, beating each other up to a bloody pulp.
Yeah.
Couldn't remember why the fight started, but their dad came back into them beating each other up. And I just remember thinking, oh my word, these boys hate each other. They're going to hate each other. They're mortal enemies, all these things. And within, I don't know, 10 minutes of them coming inside the door, they were chatting and, playing their little games together and whatever. And so I learned very quickly, okay, this is what two bear cubs do. This is like what boys do. They just fight, they wrestle, whatever. And that started like this lifelong journey of the boys being on the floor wrestling and just carrying on or whatever. I think the thing that I have realized about these relationships, and of course, with my daughter being a girl, one of the obstacles has been like, how do we integrate her into the sibling relationships? She's always been somewhat able to hang with them, which has been great. I mean, she was 2 years old, and the middle son, I remember he had those big Hulk hands because those were really popular at the time. He would come and run full force at the poor little girl and run into her with those Hulk hands and, bowl her over. So she was used to that whole thing. She could always just kind of hang with the two of them. And they would make these 007 movies. They have these spy movies, and she'd somehow be the secretary or something stereotypical to come in while they're like saving the day, right? Whatever the case may be. So funny. But I think what I realized was fights were going to happen between these kids. Not to panic. That was a big thing for me. Don't panic when they fight. Certainly take care of it, but don't panic, but also don't let it linger. Like, don't let this become a whole thing, because the lingering of these fights, holding grudges, all of these things is what could cause breaches, down the road. And especially as they got older, you're mad at each other. Like you guys are going to need to get over it. So it was sort of this modeling, even with their dad and I, because listen, I know some people have these marriages where they're just very laid back, whatever. We've got two feisty people who we could bark at each other. And so even modeling forgiveness amongst each other in our marriage.
Yeah.
It's really important for the siblings then to see, okay, we can fight, but we also make up, we get along, we love each other, we go on. And so modeling that so that it became, we bond too. We love each other and go on. I think also for us, it was about the family unit. And that became very important. And even to the degree, Jamie, that I think it's important for kids in the family to bond over their annoyance of the parents sometimes.
Yep.
I mean, truly, like my kids now, because again, they're grown. I can't wait to hear from you on this. But my kids now, they have their own sibling chat. Okay. So we know, my husband and I know, they've got videos that they make fun of us in it. Right. And again, they're not 8 years old.
Yeah.
That would not be okay.
Right.
That's not cool then.
Yeah.
But they're in their 20s.
Yeah.
They can make fun of us.
Yeah.
Right. And they've got funny videos of us and they're like mom and dad this and that, and they bond over that, and that's what we wanted in a way, because after we're gone, Lord willing, if the circle of life goes away, it should be, we're gone, they're going to be with each other. I'm not naive to think that they're going to live next door to each other. Like, let's have realistic expectations. They're going to have their own life, their own dynamic when that happens, but you pray for them to still really like each other, like the people they marry if they get married. And it goes on because it's really important. Like now, my middle son, he's friends with my older son's wife. Like they tease and carry on. They even chat each other sometimes. So all of these things come into play. But what has been your thought process and hope for your kids, bonding as siblings together?
Well, it's funny because we were talking about your middle son, like running Shay over with those Hulk things.
Yeah.
I too have 3 boys that are older and 1 daughter that's younger. All my kids' ages, because 3 of them are adopted, are within 4 years. So these kids are like boom, 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 boom. And I used to always say that my daughter's story, I said, she will beat you up in a princess dress. She used to wear princess dresses everywhere, but I was like, do not count her out. She's got 3 big brothers.
Right.
She will take care of herself.
So good.
And so that made me laugh. But, I think the same thing as well is I really want to create some sort of bond between our kids that will outlast Aaron and I, because you're right. That is so true. Just the other day, Aaron and I were going to bed because for all of you people with young kids, Lisa and her husband and me and my husband, we go to bed before our children do.
Yes,
because
ma'am.
we are grown 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds.
Yeah.
I don't know how old you are. I didn't mean to call you out. It's funny because just recently, Aaron and I were going to bed because if you have younger kids, when you get teenagers, you go to bed before them.
That's right.
We were going to bed and Aaron looked at all the kids. They were all in the kitchen still. And he's like, y'all go ahead and y'all can start talking about us now before we leave. And he was kind of joking.
Yeah.
But, I will say that when my kids were younger, there are fights and there are that arguing. And what I had to remember is everything you just said, is that I wanted to create a space where we could have disagreements and have all these things, but there could be reconciliation. We could take care of those fractures that we had in the relationship. And did I always do that well? Absolutely not. That was a lot of kids at a lot of time and a lot of things going on. But that's something that I wanted to really work on. I know that this is not the case for everyone, but my 3 boys shared one room for years and years and years.
Yes.
For us, it was out of necessity. We just didn't have a large house. And I look back and I think what a joy for them to spend those early formative years together. Like literally we had 3 beds in one room.
Yep.
They were together. And I think that helped build some kind of camaraderie between the 3 of them. And as they've gotten older, all my 4 kids are in different things. They have different activities, but they really bonded together. I'll tell you a quick story. This was just recently. So my kids' ages now are 19, 17, 17, and 15. And we were all together after a dinner. And I said something to my daughter, which I didn't. I'm not a mean person. I wasn't trying to be mean. Maybe it was harsh. Maybe it was mean. Blunt, harsh. And my oldest son, in front of everyone, which we had a conversation later about that, but in front of everyone was like, Mom, that was really mean what you just said to Story. And I told Aaron afterwards, I was like, I was fine with him doing that. Now, I wish he wouldn't have done it in front of everyone, and we talked about that. But I told Aaron, I was like, I was actually really fine about that because he wasn't trying to be mean to me. He was literally just saying, I think you were just mean to her.
Yeah.
And there was a part of me that was like, A, he's sticking up for his sister.
Yeah.
And B, I don't want to be above being able to be called out. You know, if I'm being mean, let me know. I don't want to be mean.
Yeah.
You know? And so I even, in that moment, I went to bed after we dealt with a bunch of other things, but I thought, I really enjoy the fact that the biggest brother was taking care of the smallest one in the family and sticking up for her, even if it was against his own mom.
Yes.
But I'm like, yes, this is what I want. And, you know, Lisa, I want to say this, and then I'd love to hear from you. We have noticed that when we have been out of our routines, I think I spoke about this on another show this season. When we've been out of our routines, we see our kids in a different way. We spent an extended amount of time on a vacation last year, and I saw my kids be friends with each other.
Yes.
I think what I talked about was I saw myself interacting more with them on a friend level than a parent level on that vacation. But I saw them as friends. Aaron and I would go to bed and they'd stay up late and watch movies together. Or we were really crazy and in Rome, let them like walk off all by themselves. You know, they all came back alive, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But they were together and they were hanging out and they were being friends. And there was a part of me that made myself kind of think like, you know what? I think they're going to be okay.
Yes.
I think they're going to be okay.
Yes. I think that's the key. I think it is the putting them in positions that they are sort of forced to bond.
Yeah.
It's like the togetherness factor, right? Because especially as they get older, the kids are going to have different schedules. They're going to they're going to be going here, going there. I mean, somebody listening is like, yeah, my 10-year-old and my 13-year-old and my 14-year-old, they're all going in these different directions, and that is the way it goes. Right? They all have different social calendars and ball schedules, whatever. So you have to be intentional. There's that word again. We've said it all season, but it's like you have to be intentional about the way that you put your kids in the room where honestly, they're forced to be friends in a way. Because otherwise, are they going to pick each other? Maybe or maybe not.
Because I was going to say, we're not asking them to be best friends.
Right. And also, they've got different personalities, Jamie. It's the reality of it. You know, it's so funny. I had so many flashbacks as you're talking about all these different aspects. First of all, when you get to these older kids and especially young adults, because Caden's a young adult, basically. So when they get to be young adults, by the way, get ready for being called out sometimes. And, it really is one of those things that happens.
Yep.
And that is interesting, an interesting dynamic. That's a little bit of a side road. Yeah. But when you were talking about sharing a room, it flashed me back to when Graham was a senior, my oldest Graham. He was a senior in high school. Micah was a sophomore. And that's when we moved. And again, we talked about this on a different show, but we moved to a small home. In that home was, I think, 1,100 square feet. Well, we had moved from 3,800 square foot house. They had to share a room, Jamie, for the first time since they were 4 and 2. Now imagine these boys
big
are
boys
over 6 foot. Right? Okay, they're sharing a room. Beds. I mean, we had to sandwich these beds in this room, and it was an experiment in can these boys even coexist in this space. And I remember, flashback now to that bar fight in the beginning of the top of the show I was talking about. But I remember one night, the boys were laughing hilariously. I walk in the room. There is a massive hole in the wall from where they are now wrestling on the bed, and one of them had put their elbow through the wall. Now, great. Dad's got to fix this wall. We got some drywall issues.
Yep.
But then it became fun. Yeah. These guys are rolling around and wrestling. But the point is, they were stuck in that room together. And do they love it? Probably not. Yeah. I'm sure not all the time they did. Yeah. But it is putting them in positions where they have to be together. Yeah. To bond, and that can go too far. But I also think it is one of those times where they're sort of forced to learn what's good about each other.
Yeah, and I think as people are listening and you're thinking okay, you might have a 4 and a 6-year-old, or maybe some people have a 13 and a 2-year-old. We got a different story here. Yeah, we're not even talking about how do we create best friends out of our kids. No, because you said it so beautifully. They all have different preferences. They all have different things. I have 2 kids in the same grade. They have different friend groups. Some of them overlap, but I think as I'm thinking about this, what I really want to instill in my kids is how do we treat people like friends? How would you treat a friend? How would you be kind to someone? Yeah. And that's what we really want to see in our kids. It's it's not like I don't need you two to be BFFs. You don't need matching bracelets, matching necklaces. No. But what I do need you to be is I need you to be kind to each other.
Courteous.
We say that for a couple of reasons. We always say, hey, here's why we treat each other like this. Number one, because we're followers of Jesus, and this is what we do. Number two, we're all Ivies. And Ivies don't treat each other any other way but this way.
Yeah.
And so we try to have that language in our home is this is why I'm asking you to treat your sibling this way. We love Jesus. And you know what? This is another show for another day. I use that language even if some of my kids are like, I don't want to love Jesus. Or even when they're younger and they haven't made that profession of faith, you're still going, we love Jesus in this family. And so this is how we do this.
Yes. I also think that, one of the things I wish someone had said to me, or maybe they did and I didn't pick up on it, was there is no playbook, Jamie, for even like creatively helping your friends become siblings. If someone's written a book on that, please let me know what it is.
We would like to see it.
Because I don't know what it is. I really don't. There probably is. Someone probably has, and I'm sure it's beautiful. But I remember as I'm trying to parent these kids day to day, and we're going through all this stuff, and I'm thinking, are my kids going to be friends? Are they going to like each other? One, end of the story isn't written. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
me too.
I still hope that they like each other, in 10 years and all those things, but we don't know.
Yeah.
We do our best, like with everything. We put them in positions, but they're human beings. Mm-hmm. They can choose for themselves, and life takes them on different paths and different ways they go. And so, again, it's all about how are we launching them? How are we doing the best we can to do it? But it's on them at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But there is no playbook for this. And I do remember there were times I thought, man, I just don't know if I'm facilitating this right. I remember one time that the boys were fighting about something. Again, this was typical. And I think they need levity in this moment. Like, I think if they could laugh, they would realize this is ridiculous because it was something stupid. I mean, here's the fact. Boys are super competitive about things. Listen, my daughter's competitive too. Don't get me wrong. And I'm competitive. So they come get it honest. They get it from competitive family. But the boys are competitive with each other. Right. It's weird. They will turn everything into a competition. Like, you put them together and they're brushing their teeth. Who brushes it faster? It's weird. It's like it's innate.
Yeah.
But they will compete. And I think in this moment they were, I did this better, whatever. And they're fighting before they know it. And I remember thinking, if they could laugh, I think they'll see this as stupid. And so I said to them, I said, you know what, guys? I said, you guys don't like each other right now. You're mad. I said, okay, well, I'm going to make you sit on the couch and hold hands.
I've done it.
You've done it?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess this is maybe this is playbook then.
Yep.
But they had to sit on the couch and hold hands. And I even took a picture to document it. And they just thought they eventually they were so mad. They were so mad at me. But again, bond together, be mad at mom.
You got a common goal.
I'm fine with it because I can handle it. I got big shoulders here. And but before they knew it, they were laughing. They thought it was so dumb.
Yeah.
And then, by the time they could stop holding hands, they weren't mad anymore.
Yeah.
So I think it's just be creative with it. Just be intuitive. Here's the thing. These are your kids. Like, God entrusted them to you. Believe that God will give you the wisdom, yes, on the fly. And you know how many times, Jamie, I have had to get wisdom on the fly? When I couldn't look in a reference book. Maybe there wasn't one on my shelf, or maybe there was and I didn't have the time for it. And I just said, Lord, help me know how to help these kids even like each other or get along or what to do right now. And that is the beauty of parenting with the Holy Spirit, because on the fly, He can help you know what to do.
Hey friends, I'm so excited about today's expert for today's show about how to help our kids develop lifelong friendships and how we help instill love and kindness towards their brothers and sisters. Today's expert is my friend Catherine Garza, and Catherine is a friend of mine here in Austin, Texas. She is literally who I text when I have parenting questions, especially in these days of parenting teenagers and young adults. Catherine and her husband Devin have lived in Austin for many, many years, and they've raised 4 children together. They have 2 girls and 2 boys. 2 of their kids are married, so they also have 2 daughters-in-laws, and they just love Jesus. They want to see their kids love Jesus, and she really has been the friend that I've always needed in helping me think through questions about parenting that are just sometimes hard to say out loud, but you can text that one friend and ask them. Here's my friend, Catherine Garza.
Hi, my name's Catherine. I have 4 grown kids. My 2 older boys are both married, and I have 2 younger girls. They're all 3 and 4 years apart, and they're all really good friends, and they really love each other well. I loved listening to this episode, and it gave me a whole lot to reflect on raising our kids and teaching them about friendship And I could really relate to Lisa talking about her boys fighting, because our boys loved to wrestle around their whole lives and actually still do, and have actually seriously hurt each other doing it, but never in anger. We didn't allow them to hit one another in anger, and we didn't allow them to physically fight when they were angry with each other, which isn't to say that they weren't allowed to be angry. We allowed them to feel their feelings, but they just couldn't physically act out in anger. My relationship with my older brother was a very negative one, and he was quite a bully. So I wanted to make sure that my kids didn't treat each other the way he treated me. It was something I felt really, really strongly about. Recently, somebody with young kids was asking me what we did as parents to encourage our kids' friendships. And so I asked my kids what they remember growing up about us teaching them how to love each other well and to be friends. And the first thing each of them said was that we taught them how to empathize with each other, to sincerely apologize, and to forgive. And, Jamie talked about reconciliation, and I think that that's key to setting up good relationships. Even though we didn't allow physical fighting, my kids argued a lot, especially my girls. I mean, there was a point in time when I thought that they would never be friends. But, that provides lots of opportunity to teach them to see how they hurt each other and to really say that they were sorry so that they could be forgiven. And each of them has said that that has set them up to be able to do that as an adult, in their adult relationships, to not hold grudges, but to be able to reconcile with each other. The other thing my kids all agreed on was that our family vacations were key in forming their friendships. So I loved hearing Jamie talk about their kids being friends outside of their regular routine on their family vacation. There's just something about getting kids outside of their normal rhythms and influences that breaks down barriers and makes them just depend on each other for their fun and entertainment. We didn't ever take their friends on family trips. For one thing, we drove everywhere we went, and we took up an entire Suburban, so there wasn't room for extra kids. But for another thing, we just knew that this was sacred time for our family, and friends changed the whole dynamic. So we just didn't do that. Another thing that Jamie and Lisa talked about was being kind to each other. And my kids remember this as well. And one of the most important lessons I remember teaching them is to treat each other well. And they weren't allowed to call each other names, and they weren't allowed to say shut up to one another. We drew really hard lines around those words because words matter and you can't take them back or make somebody unhear them. So if we ever heard them speaking unkindly, we reminded them that the Garzas don't talk to each other like that. We're a family, and families forever. Your friends will come and go, but your sister is your sister always, so you need to take care of that relationship. We were really fortunate to grow up near my husband's siblings, and they're all really good friends. So that was modeled really well to our kids. We could always point to them and say something like, "Can you imagine your dad saying something like that to your uncle?" And I think that was a huge influence on all of them, and seeing their aunts and uncles treat each other with such love made it normal for them to treat each other that way. My daughter told me the story about being at a friend's house, and the brother and the sister were screaming ugly things at each other, and she stepped into the middle of the argument and was saying, "Y'all are brother and sister, you shouldn't be talking to each other that way. God says to love each other, and that's what y'all need to do." And, that just brings me to the faith aspect of teaching your kids to love each other. My daughter said that being raised in the Christian faith has had a huge impact on how she learned to treat her siblings. And as a parent, I don't think we could have done the job we did without Jesus. I mean, I made so many mistakes that he covered, and he answered so many prayers that I prayed for my kids, and he has surely done abundantly more than I could ask or imagine in their love and friendship for one another. I just loved this episode so much, and it makes me so thankful for my kids' relationships. I just want to thank you, Jamie and Lisa. Thanks.